I believe the ways in which we understand God consciousness itself is largely misunderstood. I believe the ways in which we utilize symbolism and metaphor quite can be literal manifestations. Um, Carl Jung says it most in his quote, until you make the unconscious conscience, it'll make ways for perception, or it will create life, and you'll call it fate. I've kind of butchered that quote, but that is a quote that speaks well to the existence of the nature of both what can be seen as angels or demons and light and darkness. I think the framework in which we understand both light and the dark is mainly misunderstood. I think many people seek to oppress and put labels between a war on what is high and what is dark, and what is good and what is bad. Necessarily, yes, there is evil, and good does exist, but it's not necessarily a trait that is fixated upon, nor is it a trait that can be unlearned or relearned. I think between this discovery of gnosis in which I've undergone, in which knowing cannot be learned through textbooks or literature or anything found within text or through others' lived experience, in which experience itself is only learned through the eyes of the observer. I believe that there is a definition between God, and that definition between God is very much closely linked to the heart of man, and that man and God cannot coexist without each other, because man creates God, God creates man. It is a cyclical nature, whether that is the brain or the human consciousness fragmenting itself upon a greater experience, or even God itself pretending to be man, pretending to be mortal, pretending to exist within a world filled with his own creations, but not content to find itself to lean towards anything other. I think the framework in which we understand these things is largely misconstrued. I think people think of gods as sort of things to be discarded and not things to be worshipped. And I think that is what human nature is for. Human nature itself is meant to try to explain the unexplained, but it cannot reasonably fathom the world. If you saw the real world, your eyes would melt and your body itself would decay and flay itself. You try to deconstruct yourself from this way of living and existence, and you'd find yourself living in hell. You'd find that no matter how much you try to escape from what you perceive as the real world, you will never understand what is reality. In a bite-sized post in which I posted on my story on Instagram, I said how there is no distinction between reality, between what you deem as AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, and dreaming world. There is no distinction in quality, or there's no distinction in what you perceive within this simulacra or simulation, or whatever you perceive to believe reality is to be. There is no distinction between states other than what is happening to you in the present moment. I think for me, what is to become of this moment is to realize that I am a master rather than I am a teacher. But understanding that mastery and teaching come hand in hand. But within this, there must exist a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift in which the world itself reimagines the way we think of mystics and alchemy again. And I think we've seen a resurgence of that. I think we've seen a way in which new and more people are tapped into spirituality more than ever, looking into mysticism, looking into Gnosticism, looking into esoteric text. But I think what needs to happen is not the identification of the separation from church, but the recategorization of these things. It's like rebuilding the Library of Alexandria. And I think the more that we consciously try to create and understand truths and understand where we are within this environment, then we can begin to shift and understand human consciousness. But I think at this level, we are not able to understand or discern what is real between what is fiction. And maybe that is the system itself understanding, but I think to me that showcases that the dream itself, the dreaming of reality, is becoming more fictitious than it is becoming non-fictitious or fake. Meaning that the veil itself is becoming thinner for whatever your subconscious desire that lays roots within your mind and also within the consciousness, the greater consciousness, all exists between the fabric of time and other realities. I think that more and more people will have to learn to trust their own words and intuition. And I think that people will have to understand themselves and the principles that they are willing to enact for change into this world. You will have to fight for what you believe is right. And I think no matter where you are, whether you believe in the physical world, where you believe in the metaphysical world, where you believe in the dreaming, whether you believe in the unconscious, there is a matter in which the present coincides everything. The present moment is everything. The present moment coincides our fate. The fate of the world relies upon this. Because once you reach quantum probability, there could only be one outcome. One outcome, whether good or for bad, there is one outcome. The universal constant would be 1 or 0, depending on your definition. But I digress. In that same sentence, God is both nothing and everything, just a fragmentation of 1 and zeros. God is nothing and everything. God is being and God is nothing. A-O-A-O. You breathe out. You breathe out. You breathe out. That is existence. Until that is not existence no more, then new discoveries will be found. But until then, that is existence.